Are you thinking of leaving corporate, but too afraid to make the move? Have you already escaped corporate, but are finding it hard to run your dream business? Are you wasting valuable time by attempting to figure challenges out on your own? We have created a podcast for corporate escapees running their own business. This is the Corporate Escapees Podcast by Build, Live, Give. We bring you firsthand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day as a corporate escapee. We get real with no corporate BS. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Welcome to Corporate Escapee Stories by Build, Live, Give. I'm Paul Higgins and I'm your show host. And today we've got Kyla Martin from HealthChase. Kyla loved corporate life and she traveled the world in pharmaceuticals and had a great career. But she left to join a startup, and when she joined, she was team member number 5, and that grew to a very healthy exit. Then she had a family, and then she decided that she didn't want to go back to corporate, but she wanted to follow her passion. So she went and did further studies and really set her heart on wellness. Then her and a business partner, Helen, and the support of her husband, Daryl, and friends, have now created a brilliant wellness platform driven by evidence-based metrics, which is changing the lives of millions. So this is a fantastic story. They're 3 years in, and you'll get a lot of value out of this. So what I'll do now is hand you over to Kyla Martin from HealthChase. I hope you're inspired by listening to our wonderful guest stories. All of our guests know the one ingredient to rapidly grow their dream business. That is picking the right suppliers. Let's face it, it's too hard doing it all on your own. So with this in mind, we have created a free on-demand training which gives you the 4 essential questions to ask suppliers. I've combined my 18 years experience at Coca-Cola and 7 years advising corporate escapees all over the world to give you actionable advice in less than 25 minutes. Simply go to buildlivegive.com/webinar. If you are tired of underachieving and want to fill gaps in skills, please watch our on-demand training now. The link will also be in the show notes. Please check it out. Welcome, Kyla Martin from HealthChase to the Corporate Escapees Story Podcast. We're very excited to have you on here today, Kyla, and we're going to get to know more about you. But why don't you start with something that your friends or family may know about you that our listeners wouldn't?
I feel like I'm giving away secrets. My husband would sum me up. He would say that I'm either 5-star, plus 5-star, or minus 5-star. In as much as I love my 5-star luxury, but I'm equally as happy, if not more happy, sleeping under the stars. So minus 5-star camping, happiest in nature and exploring the wilderness.
Great. And what's some of your favourite spots in the world that you've camped?
Oh, definitely up at the Kimberleys in Western Australia. I love it all around there.
Ah, brilliant. Yeah, look, I haven't had the chance to get there as yet, but I haven't found anyone that's been disappointed, and I'm assuming you're the same.
Oh, no, unbelievable. I'd recommend it to anyone. Hook on a camper or sleep on the roof and head up there. It's amazing.
Great. And so your corporate escapee story. So I know you spent a lot of time in pharma and in corporate before you've got to HealthChase, and we'll find out more about HealthChase a little later. But why don't you just give us a quick summary of your corporate career?
Yeah, I actually quite enjoyed being in my corporate career. I guess it gave me a lot of opportunities in the training and grounding. And so I was involved in some big multinational companies and got to travel to London as well and around the world. That was fantastic. But probably the one that I enjoyed the most and what gave me the biggest buzz was really having the opportunity to get involved in a startup, admittedly not my startup, a well-funded one, but to get some shares in that, in Arrow Pharmaceuticals, which sold off to Sigma. So I loved the fact that it had so much energy. I loved the fact that I started as a team of 5 that grew pretty quickly. And I loved that we could pivot to the needs of the market a lot quicker than we could with a very large entity. So I loved that. I did go back to corporate after that when I was in London, but had the kids. And I guess I needed something a bit special to draw me back into working life. And I had my own passions, I guess, that I wanted to fulfill, and I definitely wanted to go back into that startup world and have a shot of it, I guess.
Great. And what were some of the key lessons that you learnt from being in that team of 5 and seeing, I suppose, a rocket ship explode
to use a term?
I think it was really around watching your market, listening to your clients and what they're telling you, really trying to understand what is that need that they have and how you can fill it. And everybody in the team being up for it. If I was in, training and development, I was in recruitment, you just have to do everything to support each other going forward. For example, I remember visiting one of my team members down in Victoria, and they had some family issues, and then literally just having to leave and stay there and finish off signing up our clients, our pharmacies at the time, for a deadline. And I just love the buzz on that. But yeah, and making decisions. Not making a decision is fatal. Whether you get it right or wrong, you need to make that decision.
Yeah, and anything particular they did in listening to clients? Was there anything that you could pass on as your experience at that time?
Well, in this particular case, the people I started with had Alpha Pharm, who were one of the largest, or still are, I think, one of the largest generic companies, and they sold up and started Arrow. And it was really about, saying to the pharmacists, did they want to have a piece of Arrow? They could have had a piece, if they could have had a piece of Alpha Pharm, would they wanted to be part of what you're now developing? And I think that's it, taking your clients along with you, feeling that they're very much a part of what you're developing. So really including them, I guess, in the changes that you make, keeping them informed.
Great. And is it right that you had a corporate role just before you started HealthChase, or is that how it transpired?
Well, it did, but I didn't automatically leave for it. There's a big gap in between, a big hiatus, if you like, where I had my kids and I wanted to be with them when they were young. And then I did go back into sort of venturing into the startup again straight away, which was sort of with Melbourne Sports and Aquatics Centre, helping them set up a wellness program there. So my love, I'd already found my passion sort of in the wellbeing sector, and I was doing postgrad in nutrition. So I started with that, then had another child. And then when I finally was ready to go back to work, it was really about how do we actually take this concept of wellbeing, how do we create change? So many of us know what to do, why aren't we doing it? And really trying to solve that problem. And that was really, once I knew exactly what it was and my mission, along with my business partner, then it was, time to take action, I guess. I had to find what that meaning was and what it was I wanted to do.
Great. And how long ago was that?
We've started up, it's just over 3 years old now.
Great. And if you go back sort of 3 years, what were some of the key fears that you had at the time when you started it?
Oh, definitely failure. I wanted to be a role model for my girls. And so there was, I was a bit worried about failing in front of them. But at the same time, I wanted them to see someone strive for it regardless of the outcome. So I think failure was probably, it was just failure. Like, would this work? Would it be able to fund itself? Would we be filling a market? Would they actually want to pay for what we're doing? They say they want it, but would they pay for it? So all of those, just the insecurity of starting afresh.
Yeah, and was there any point during that 3 years that you thought, actually maybe this is too hard and it might be just safer to go back to corporate?
Absolutely, on numerous occasions. Because it's the truth, I could have walked back into a role and been very comfortable with that. It would make it a lot easier, a lot more perks, regular income. But each time I felt like that, it was really about understanding why I felt like that. And it was simply because I was tired. Mm-hmm. And if I was really true to myself, my passion didn't lie there. It was just an easy way out because, it's hard work. And there's no one else to turn to. It really does fall on yourself. And in my case, my business partner to make it work. So, yeah, definitely times like that. But I always managed to turn it around just before, I took that step. It's much easier having somebody to work with, I have to say.
Yeah, and tell me about that, because I know that, for a lot of our audience, sometimes people say, you should never go into partnership with anyone, all the statistics of why it doesn't work. And then some other people like yourself absolutely love working with a partner. For you, what makes being in a partnership so exciting for you?
Well, I think our partnership is good because we carry both very diverse skills. So Helen's an ex-lawyer and she's very good at the detail, and I'm, sort of the sales end, if you like. So I was very outside of my comfort zone before we started having a product to take out and clients to meet. And Helen sort of excelled there, and sort of come into my own after that. But I would say what's made it work was we're very clear on the downsides, and so we set up some rules and parameters of how we wanted to work early on, and we put contracts in place as well, just to ensure if anything did happen. So it just gave us security, I guess, going forward. And if we've ever come to heads, and it's only really happened a couple of times, it's really because one of us hasn't been open in our communications and let someone take the reins when you haven't felt comfortable with it. And so I think what works for Helen and I is now we're such a robust team because we just say what's on our mind, and if we're feeling uncomfortable, we say it. And then we both have an agreement that we always go with the person who feels least comfortable.
Great. Oh, there's some really wise words there. And you talk about Helen, Daryl, your husband, I know has helped you. Who else has sort of helped you over the last 3 years to get to where you guys are today?
Oh, look, I have to say pretty much everyone we've ever known. No, I just a little in that. No, we've really drawn on friends. We've got a great network. We're fortunate because we do have people who carry amazing skills, and we're quite happy to mentor us throughout. I think, one of the things we did very early on was we always asked for help, and we called on our friends to give us advice and to sit down with us and to really challenge us the whole way through. So our friends helped us, and certainly I remember having an evening here one night where we just asked them to absolutely throw everything at us with their work hats on, because that was our target market.
Yes.
And then we do a lot of gamification and scalable games. So we got our friends to play them, and we got them to take to their corporates as well, so we got bigger teams as well to feed back to us, the good, the bad, and the ugly. All feedback was good. So it was really our network of friends. But as a result, it's also our biggest upside now too, because all of those friends are talking about us because we have the hard data to back up what we do now. So they've become our biggest advocates as well.
Excellent. And if that sort of lends us to the next question, which is, if you walked into a party and someone says, "What do you do, Kyla?" How would you answer that?
Oh, this is always the hard one, isn't it? But look, I would say that I run a company that engages individuals and teams to activate positive, lasting change in the aim of improving lives, team performance, and business outcome.
Wow, excellent. What do people normally say when they hear that?
Oh, they usually say how.
Yeah.
How, that's big. That's really big, how. And I guess for us, we do it via, an online, fully scalable healthy games platform. Also new to our business recently is a high performance coaching and leadership platform. And we've even built on that through a partnership with a data analytics company. Now we have a healthy insights portal as well, and changed our market from, elite sporting clubs through to business now.
Yeah, and where does, we've got listeners all around the world, but where does Australia sort of sit in the grand scheme of, these type of developments, and I suppose the whole nutrition and healthy eating? Where do you find Australia sitting in that spectrum?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. There's a lot of talk about well-being, and you would think that everybody would want that. And I think there's still a lot of let's tick the box about our well-being. But I think what where we're really trying to lead the way is to actually put dollar values to that. So using evidence-based outcomes and metrics that we capture the whole way through, we're actually able to go back to corporates now and show them what they're doing by not looking after their team, and what we're achieving by, in some ways, in our wellbeing programs, certainly, the benefits that can come through, and the evidence-based benefits from a monetary point of view around, eating well, exercising, stress management, sleep, all of those sorts of things. So I think we're getting there. I think it's still fairly early days. I think the days, though, of just education-based programs that don't measure change will start to move out. And I think hopefully that's where we sit, is where we're really now not just talking about education, we're talking about activating change and measurable change that impacts lives and businesses.
Yeah, and it's an interesting dichotomy because my experience, unfortunately, was working for a company that wasn't the healthiest in the world. We had a few products that were, but the majority weren't. And but we measured the way that we ran the business and the way we measured things. I think was better than any company I've ever worked in. So it was interesting. And you could see. Well, I could certainly say that was one of the reasons why I left. Is that certainly in Australia, the war on sugar. I remember we used to sponsor the cricket, which is an Australian sport, and with a key sponsor. And then I think within 5 years, the actual anti-sugar were the key sponsor, and there was bottles of a product, and they were throwing cricket balls at it. So in 5 years, that's how much things had changed. Which, to be honest, I'm all for, and it never really sat comfortably with me. But I think it's brilliant now that those things that we all intuitively knew, that companies like yours are now actually helping us with evidence-based decision-making to support it. And it must be a great space for you to be in, especially because I'm assuming in pharma as well, it was sort of like more the other end. It wasn't the prevention, it was more the fix, I suppose, in your career maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. It was mainly around treatment, and at the time we had some preventative stuff, it's true, but once again, it was medication. But there's so much that we can do, and HealthChase really stemmed from really trying to answer some questions around health, which was, why if you've got type 2 diabetes and you might die and lose your legs and go blind, why are people still not activating change? And why has the product, that the government's released, why have they just dropped it because no one instigated it? And it's about understanding change management too. If we really are serious about this, what are the change management tools? For example, we know that it's team. I'm more likely to do it for my team than I am to do it for myself, for example. Don't tell me what to do. Let me do it in my own way. These are things that we can pull out all the data for. We've got the data behind it to show what change means, but also the impact of change. And even some of the data kept by, we started working with the Carlton Football Club and, some of the elite groups. They're really understanding the benefits of understanding player wellness, not just skills, and how that affects their performance on field. And we've got so much in business to learn from how they do things in elite sporting clubs.
Yeah, well, any help that Carlton can get, I'm grateful for, because being a Carlton supporter for all my life, it hasn't been very good since 1985. So
you just watch this space.
Okay, I will with intrigue. And your ideal clients. So you talked about corporate, but sort of describe to our audience, because a lot of people listening to this are currently in corporate, and they may be able to influence change through a program like yours. So who is your ideal client?
Yeah, I would say because of the scalable nature of what we do and what we do, I think we've probably got 3 key clients. One is sort of a larger company trying to instigate healthy change, wellbeing, culture change, or performance-based change in a scalable way. So what we're capable of doing, if you have an organisation, for the moment one of our clients is right across Australia, you want to create change, we've got a scalable way to do that right across an organisation, so it becomes the norm and part of the culture versus just doing one office at a time. So a larger organisation. I would say elite sporting clubs and businesses with our high-performance coaching platform that really want to get cross-functional teams operating as at their best in teamwork and being a united force towards a common goal. So, it's a bit like sporting. Once again, you got your forward, mids and backs. We all play a role, and how are we accountable for the role that we play, including looking after our own wellbeing and being present and engaged. And then probably our third are businesses that really want to understand wellbeing and behaviour and performance data and gain the insights from that, whether or not it's grouped in with other silos of data throughout the business, or really understand how different aspects of wellbeing or behaviours impact the total business.
Right, and the size of business for the third one, like how big, and what's how much data do you need to have, I suppose, to get?
Yeah, the bottom one, for example, one of the companies we're talking to, they do a lot of travel, and they might have 3,000 people traveling at the same time, and and what effect does that travel on how many times they travel a year, where they stay, the length of their flight, things like that. How does that impact the person's well-being and their performance? So, for them, I would say much larger numbers, but certainly for the games, it's anything from 30 people up. At the moment, this week, we're launching for all of the retail outlets for Australia Post in Australia. So there's 710 outlets and 7,000 people on the end of it. And that's what technology can bring. It can really find a way to scale and the people we get to.
Great. And I'm really intrigued. Obviously, evidence and getting your program is one of the best things to do. But outside of that, just what are some tips? I know you mentioned, around people making change, and it was around, team, let me do it my own way. What are some other key things that you've learnt through this journey that you could pass on to our audience without them having to go and get the data right now?
It's about changing environments through communities. So, for example, and I hope I'm answering your question here, is so if you want to change cultures, whether or not that's in wellbeing or create change, it's very hard to fight against the norm. So you need to bring the norm to them, and that's where this inclusivity becomes really important. So our games in particular are very much set up so that everybody can participate regardless of where they fall on the wellbeing spectrum, if you like, or what their cultural values are, or they can all play and they can all equally succeed in what they do.
And you talked about those three different groups, the large corporates, the elite, and then the businesses after data. How did you go about picking those? How did you go about picking those three different ideal clients?
I think for us, we set up on one of our aims was always to be inclusive, but it was always to reach larger organisations, and with businesses changing and becoming more globally oriented, that's sort of what we wanted to cater for. And we've got the technology to do that. So that's why we go for the larger companies to make a big impact. And they have special needs that aren't being fulfilled at the moment. So, you can't get a training program out to everybody, and everybody working across, different geographies as well. So that's why we went for, I guess, larger companies, because the need lies there. The elite sporting clubs really found us. So that's why it's a new product for us. They really approached us because one of the things we do is we engage people on a large scale, and they needed to really engage players to want to give data when players really just want to get out there and play. So how do we engage them? How do we make that interaction with our portal engaging for them, and what do they want to get out of it? And that's sort of what we specialised in, and we use some gamification in there, so compliance is second to none, and so we can capture the data and we can customise it, whether or not it's on skill performance, if you like, or wellbeing or coach player interactions. We can do all of that, and it's exactly the same in businesses. When they're coaching people, it's exactly the same principles. We can do that. And the same with the insights in data. Businesses want to understand the impact that their strategies have on their people, and we just, once again, are what we excel in is engaging people to want to interact with us. We're fun.
Great, brilliant. And the next question was around unique value prop, and fun. How does that come about in a product? Like, why would someone go with your product versus someone else's out there?
I think because ours is about community and peer-to-peer sharing. So we're not telling them what to do. We're letting them find a way to do it themselves, and they often learn off their peers. We just sort of guide that, and we encourage fun. So we have photo boards, we have game banter, we have chats. Everything sort of asks people to enjoy themselves throughout the processes. But we would say our unique value proposition is really about people know what to do, but it's taking, I guess, combining education with action, getting people to put it into practice and feel good about themselves and feel rewarded for doing so.
Great. And do you think that value prop, does it come from, who you guys are, Helen and you, or has it come from what you researched, got from the consumer and then build it based on that? Or is it, a combination of both?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I think we really set out, that was what we wanted to do, was how do you engage people to want to activate change? And that was what it was about. And we used gamification, became a way and a tool to do that. The platform became a way to actually stretch it and make it scalable for organisations. So we went out with a very single vision, and then we used, and still do, use whatever technology and knowledge we need to make that happen. So it's more about following our vision than, technology, because there's a piece of technology, we'll use it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And what's the number one source of new business, new leads for you?
Yeah, look, I would still say that it's our network of people making connections for us. A lot of word of mouth. We've got a few runs on the board now. We're really only just gaining traction, but it's been mainly word of mouth. So our approach has been to get our foot in to a larger organisation with a business unit first. So someone prepared to give us a chance, show them what we can do, and then scale it out. And that's sort of what we did with Australia Post, and we've done with other customers. We're still at that point where we've got our foot in, and now we're starting to scale within those bigger businesses.
Great. And for people that, are listening, a lot of our audience are selling to corporate and they're trying to get into the likes of Australia Post, etc. What are some tips you can give them on getting in the door and being successful like you guys have been?
I think it is about, for us, when we were lucky, we had people to introduce us, and it is about understanding what their needs are, though. You've got to be there first and keep going. Find the right person, because, that can be tricky. And it does take a lot of time to do it the way that we've done it. I wish that I could say that everybody jumps on our website. We're just about to update that and hopefully make that happen. But early on, it was really about making sure that we had the right value proposition, if you like, for them. And we were there at the right time. So it's about constantly being present and not trying once or twice. But if you know that you've got a really good solution for the problem they've got, just keep going back and be forefront of mind.
Great. And any other struggles that you've got in the area of sales?
Yeah, definitely it is about getting in front of the right people. We've just invested now in trying to get our branding right, given we've had a bit of a change in direction, bringing on the new sort of coaching portal and also the insights portal. So we're always very data driven, but we've got so much more to offer now. We've sort of just revamping our branding and our messaging to be in tune with where we've come. We've been running so fast that we've failed to keep up with ourselves.
Yeah, which it happens. It happens so often in a rapidly growing startup. And how big is your team other than you and Helen? Who else is in the team?
Yeah, it's about 6 of us. Helen and I are full-time, and then our team sort of expands and contracts at need. So we've got a really good pool of people to help us, and it works well for us because it means we can make the product really affordable to scale, because that's often a big challenge. Is it's 30 people playing is very different to 3,000 people paying for it or participating in it. So that's a bit of a winning formula for us, and a lot of our systems are automated. And so we just keep reinvesting in automation right now.
Right. And that automation, is that in what part of the business? Is that in operations, in the product itself? Give us a bit of an insight into that.
Yeah, it's mainly in the product itself at the moment. Is just making sure that it can set, it runs itself. It doesn't mean that you don't participate. We have game masters and we have that sort of front end. But most of the actual systems are automated now with trigger points, which is brilliant.
Great. And what have you learnt most about building this team of, like you said, you and Helen and 6 others, and I'm assuming other suppliers as well. What have you sort of learnt most out of that versus, what you've done in your corporate?
Yeah, I think more so than, I always do this with my teams in corporate as well, but really going out and sourcing people with diverse skill sets, and going for the people who fill your biggest gaps and recognising what they are. So technology is not a hard one to think through. So I've got 2 people and code people who are integral to what we do, and Boo starting with us from the day we started, really. Bringing us the technology, but also, whether or not it's account management or whether or not it's design or whether or not it's somebody to manage your processes. Maddie came in and really sorted out a lot of our processes, which we were finding we were leaving behind, but we needed them in order to scale and getting our foundation really solid. So bringing in people for that. Same thing, some business management mentoring, to bring in the systems we needed because we just didn't have the know-how to do that. So for that, I would say diversity, making sure you fill your biggest skill gaps first.
Right. And what are some of the biggest challenges that are left undone?
The biggest challenges, I guess, for us right now is, it's been a long time. It's 3 years. It's hard work starting this new business. So I love the overnight success. Hopefully we'll have overnight success next year. No, but for us right now, we're in a lucky position because we're really gaining traction, and we've done a lot of, you've just done a lot of that hard work to get to this point. But now it's really about managing that growth and making sure that we're managing it in a way that is really still delivering to our clients, managing the cash flow, and evening things out there. So, that's our biggest thing, and making sure our product offerings allow us to do that. They're not just sort of sporadic one-offs, that they have flow on and longevity.
Yeah, and so how do you go about that? Like, what are a couple of key tips you could give in managing that well?
Well, we're going through that at the moment. So a lot of our one-off games, we're now moving into 1 to 3 year contracts. Our second offering, which is really the high performance coaching model, same sort of thing. Rather than it just being a 1 month coaching thing, it's now a 1 to 3 year licensing of the platform, which they can use internally, or we can supply them with the coaches for. But it means that we've got continuous cash flow, and then we've got a product we can build on. So that's sort of what we're making sure that, I guess, they're just not one-off. I guess that's our biggest strategy at the moment. And Helen and I and our team are running really fast before we pick up the next person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And the next section is about the lives section. And just tell us about some of the daily habits that have helped you, run fast, to use that word.
Yeah, we've had to be really, really focused in on this, and sometimes even for us it slips, and this is what we're about. But giving priority to ourselves and our families first is key, because when we feel that's in order, we know that we feel in order to go ahead. But it's about looking after ourselves first, making sure every day that we're eating well, exercising, staying connected with friends. But then sort of on a work front, it's really, I guess, it's about planning, making sure that everything's planned on a daily basis. And you've chunked time. I call it chunking time, which is that you're involved in every moment of what you said you were going to do, not just trying to split between 3 different jobs, and not feeling like you've done anything very well. So if it's, family time, it's family time. If it's work time, it's work time. If it's this project, it's given 2 hours, not 4 hours. That sort of thing.
Yeah, and sort of this next question relates, I suppose, to that. But what's something you've been able to do, because you actually do run your own business, and particularly run it from home, versus if you were still in corporate?
Yeah, we use co-working spaces too, which is something, I'm sorry, that we've certainly picked up just recently, and because we can, we move around different co-working spaces so that we can, interact with other people on a daily basis too, to get great ideas and insight from other people, and some energy back. But from my own sort of personal thing, what do I do? We built this knowing we wanted to run our own agenda, and so that's what we try and do. So, my kids are getting older now, so if I want to go and see them run a race at school, or if I want to go to a special thing, I do that knowing that I can come back and finish the other stuff later. So once again, that whole chunking of time, being right in the moment of whatever you're doing, whatever you choose to do, and I guess planning my own time.
Great. And Daryl, as you mentioned before, is your husband. When he listens to this podcast, what would you like to say to him for the support he's given you over the last 3 years?
Yeah, other than, doing a bit more housework as I go back into full-time work. No, he's been pretty amazing, actually. When he started his business 14 years ago, I probably had more know-how in the startup arena, but he's certainly a long way down the track from, when we started 14 years later. So he's been a great mentor. He's been great at making introductions. And as a data analyst, we actually, he's given us opportunity to support him in some of our products as well, and certainly helped us get the analytics and things right that we needed for our clients. So as much as he runs his own business, we often pull him aside and bring him back down to earth to run our business, or certainly help us out in ours. So, yeah, I would just say thank you, really, on all fronts.
Excellent.
It certainly helps, and I know it's the same for my Helen, my business partner, same for her husband. I don't think we could have done it. We couldn't have done it all.
Great. Yeah, I think, I say to a lot of people, it's you get so inwardly focused sometimes because, it is hard. It's really hard doing what you're doing. And, but it is a journey of a partnership. So, yes.
Oh, definitely. And I think definitely that emotional support too. Because it is, and that's why the other benefit of having a business partner is somebody to pick you up when you're down. You just got to hope you're not both down at the same time. And it's wild when you're both up at the same time, but it's, it sort of keeps that balance, and it does. I think for me, it certainly helps me go, provided it's the right partner.
Yeah, true. And the next section is the give section. So it's about a cause or a community that you're passionate about, and why.
Having 2 teenage girls, I definitely have a passion. I have numerous passions, but this is one that I'm very focused on at the moment, and we're doing some stuff with, as a nutritionist. Helen and I are also both nutritionists. That's sort of where we started. And I guess it's my passion is, and what I like about the gamification side of things and what we do is that we it's on a medium they like. So we've just started to trial it with teenage girls to really, because we reward eating well. You cannot win this game if you don't eat. You cannot win this game if you're caught up on fads. And it's really about creating supportive communities. And I think that's what teenage girls really need, is about an honest reward, a reward system that's evidence-based, that helps them feel good about themselves. And so that's my new thing, is to really find a way we can support teenage girls to feel good about themselves and feel good about being healthy.
Brilliant. Well, I think I've had 2 wins so far, so you're going to fix my football team up and you're going to help me with my 16-year-old daughter. So that's fantastic.
You're welcome.
So look, the last section is the action section. It's just where you do some rapid fire responses to some of these questions. So the first one is, what are your top 3 productivity tips?
I decided to stick with the P's, and I've gone personal wellbeing, planning and prioritising.
Great. So personal wellbeing, planning and prioritising.
Yes.
Excellent. And your favourite, other than HealthChase itself, but your favourite app or program that you use on your phone or your desktop?
Yeah, certainly the most used would be Slack for communicating, because all of our team is spread out. So it makes it nice and easy and nicely trackable. And Trello for planning everything from family to business to holidays to personal. they're my top two.
Great. And are there a book or a podcast that you recommend our audience listen to or read?
Yep. I've just finished A Gentleman in Moscow. Beautifully written. Love it. I'd recommend anyone to read that. I can't remember who the author is right now, though.
Oh, that's fine. Like that and anything else you've mentioned, we'll put in the show notes for our audience. And I suppose the last question is some parting advice. What's some parting advice you'd love to give to corporate escapees, whether they're just about to jump out or already have jumped out like yourself?
I'd say do it, but know how much hard work it is. Or maybe you shouldn't know. As I said, if I knew how much hard work it is, maybe I wouldn't have done it. But no, I absolutely love it. I'm so glad that I did. But I guess mine would be mistakes are your biggest learning. So forgive yourself. You've just taken a step forward. Certainly had to pick myself up a few times. Make decisions, even if they're wrong, but make them. Make them informed. Try not to make the same mistake twice. And make sure your business lives and breathes your values, because you'll get sick of your business pretty quickly if it doesn't.
Yeah, brilliant. And that's that's the one. And I love that before when you said, there are times where you get, really tired, you get worn out, but, following your passion is what keeps you doing what you're doing. So, I think that's really important to have that clear and then get your business to fit that rather than the other way around. Because otherwise you might as well go back and work for someone else. Look, it's been great listening to your story today. How can people find out more about you and HealthChase?
Yeah, well, certainly, I think by the time this comes out, a website should be up, a new one, but if not, www.healthchase.com. Go to our website or give us a call.
Excellent. Well, look, we'll definitely have that and all the other links mentioned in today's show. But I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your journey. You've had a great life. You've traveled the world. You've worked in a lot of great companies, and now you're really doing something that, like I said, I've got a personal connection to in two ways. But I think these are the sort of companies that that I want to support, that really can make a massive change on the world. So well done, and I can't wait to see your continued success.
Thanks so much, Paul.
Thanks, Kyla. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Corporate Escapees podcast, brought to you by the team at Build, Live, Give. If you found this podcast helpful, please share it with other corporate escapees. If you would like to join a community of like-minded peers, please visit www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening and be brave.